How could you save Creature of Kapu Cave from being a bad game? I don't think it would be easy. You'd have to make a ton of changes. First, the Hardy Boys look terrible. Joe looks like an old man, not a teenager. The Hardys looked perfectly fine in Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. The game should have reused those character models instead of trying to fix what's not broken. The other character designs could be improved too, but the Hardys are the ones that stand out in my memory as being extra bad. I think the Hardy Boys weren't important enough to this game. They don't do much besides Big Island Mike's chores. If you think about it, Joe gives Nancy some GPS coordinates, and Frank gives her the list of animals for the teeth puzzle. That's their entire role in this game. You could replace Joe with a GPS puzzle, and no one would be able to tell the difference. The Hardys have nothing to do with Dr. Craven, or Dr. Quigley, or Kapu Cave, or the attack on the camp. The Hardys can't have any effect on those things because they're trapped on the other side of the island. It's like Nancy and the Hardys are in two separate games that only kind of overlap. It doesn't work. The Hardys need to be more relevant to Nancy's mystery. I want something more along the lines of Legend of the Crystal Skull, which does a good job of making Bess important to the story, even though she's in a different place from Nancy. The Hardys are supposed to be investigating the Mapus, but they don't do anything besides ask a few pointed questions. Even when Joe is snooping in Big Island Mike's office, he's not investigating Mike, he's getting GPS stuff for Nancy. What was the point of giving the Hardys their own mystery when the game mostly ignores it? Part of the problem is that the Hardys have optional storylines. Have you ever called Johnny Kudo, only to never get a return call? That happened to me. I was disappointed that the story of Joe getting knocked unconscious had no resolution. Similarly, you can miss out on the Hardys confronting Richard Aiken about his connection to Dr. Craven. You can also miss out on Quigley's confession that she was paid to spy on Dr. Craven. It would be better if the game directly addressed these interesting things, instead of leaving them as optional story threads, which are easy to miss. The biggest offender in this case is the fact that Dr. Craven is the creature of Kapu Cave. Yeah, you don't have to talk to him about it. Why was that an optional storyline? The game is called Creature of Kapu Cave, but the creature is treated as an afterthought. That's another big problem. The creature should have been important to the game. It would have been good if Nancy saw the creature at some point. At the very least, give Dr. Craven a good reason for destroying Quigley's camp. The official explanation is that he misread a paper and had a temper tantrum. It's like a preschooler came up with that story. Clearly, the destroyed camp wasn't an important plot point. It was just an excuse for Nancy to have puzzles to solve. Another problem is that the Hardy Boys are always separated outside of the opening scene. You play briefly as Joe, Joe's knocked out as soon as possible, and the players are stuck with Frank for the rest of the game. It would have been nicer if both Hardys were there the whole time, and you could pick which Hardy you want to play as. Say, Frank's the one that can get information out of Big Island Mike, while Joe's the one who gets flirty with Pua. Pua definitely needs more to do. All she does is trade fish for Big Island bucks. Giving her a subplot with Joe would help. Not to mention, if both Hardys were together at some point, Frank and Joe could have a conversation. They normally have great conversations in this series. It's a letdown that they don't talk to each other, and they don't talk that much to Nancy either. Frank should have been able to call Joe at the hospital for sure. It seems cruel that Joe is knocked out and forgotten. The game should have checked back in with Joe at some point, instead of just ignoring him. I didn't like Big Island Mike's Big Island games. Fishing is way too slow and repetitive. Necklace making is okay, but it takes way too long to get enough seashells to make one necklace. I don't want to spend 10 minutes checking 4 different spots on the beach over and over again. A big part of the problem is that some of the seashells you need are in the scuba diving area. You can't get them unless you already have scuba gear, which means you don't need to make necklaces anymore. You already bought the big ticket item. Moving on to Nancy's part of the game, it's pretty slow. It's an hour before you meet Quigley. I think Quigley should have been introduced sooner. I don't like how you have to walk through the empty jungle for a minute every time you want to talk to Quigley. That's too long to wait for a simple conversation. When the game sends you back and forth between Quigley and her camp, that just feels like a huge time waster. Same with the long GPS animation that players are forced to watch over and over again. Quigley's frass sorting puzzle takes up most of Nancy's section. It's pretty awful. It's not fun. It'd be fine if this was a 2-part puzzle, but it's more like a 20-part puzzle, which comes with 3 full pages of notes describing what you have to do. Even when you're done, it feels like you're not done, because Quigley forces you to test the food supply of the moths. Breaking into the restricted section of the Healy Healy is a fun segment, probably the best part of the game. I just wish it wasn't tied to the terrible frass puzzle. And really, who thought that the food supply of moths would be interesting enough to make up 2 hours of a 3-hour game? If it's a 3-hour game. This game is also really short compared to the games before and after it. I don't know why it's so much shorter. It should have been obvious that the game needed a different, better storyline than frass. It's a definite stretch when the ending acts like frass and beetle larva were crucial to the story. Even after all these years, I still think it's weird that the culprit's plan was to get rich by spraying beetle pheromones in pineapple trees. So get rid of the frass sorting, or at least greatly reduce the scope of that puzzle. You can keep the side puzzles, like fixing the microscope. Just give us a reason to do those puzzles, besides for frass. As I've already suggested, a good replacement for frass sorting would be something to do with the creature. Quigley should care that her camp was trashed. Give Quigley and Dr. Craven some connection to the Mapus, so it doesn't feel like the 2 mysteries are completely unrelated. Give us more of the story that Quigley was paid to spy on Dr. Craven. That is so interesting, it shouldn't have been ignored. Since Kapu Cave is in the game's title, I think more emphasis should have been put on that area. Nancy goes inside the cave, mainly out of curiosity. It's not like she's expecting to find anything inside. Nancy needs an actual reason to explore Kapu Cave, like she found a clue which proves it's the creature's hideout. I like the Kapu Cave segment, except for the last puzzle. It's not a good puzzle, and it definitely needs a better explanation of the puzzle's rules. Most people, myself included, think it's just a random jumping challenge. It's not. There are rules, but the rules aren't obvious. The culprit revelation and the ending are both bad. They cram in too much exposition all at once. The fact that the culprit's plan is kinda dumb doesn't help. The ending's also bad because it includes important information that's not in the game. Like Big Island Mike is badly in debt. He has an aunt whose will gives him a bunch of property under certain conditions. That's information which should have been in the game somewhere. Leaving that out makes it impossible for anyone to solve the mystery. I already said the game should beef up the Hardy's mystery. That's a good way to do it. Have them learn about Mike's debt, or have them learn about his aunt, or his connection to the Healy Healy land. Those are my complaints about this game, and my suggestions for how to improve it. There's a lot of things that need to change. I think the big ones are getting rid of frass sorting, connecting the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew segments, instead of leaving them as mostly separate mysteries, and doing a better job of putting the story in the game, instead of dumping all the important information in the ending. I asked my followers if they had any ideas for improving this game. Many people said the game wastes its Hawaiian setting, which is true. It would have made sense for the game to go into Hawaiian mythology, since the creature is from Hawaiian myth. Yeah, there's some educational stuff about Hawaii, but that's hidden behind a paywall in Big Island Mike's office. I doubt most players saw all of it.